What's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and let me fix the camera real quick. There we go. That's a little better. What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and today we are taking a look at the New York Rangers as they are the first team in the 2023-2024 NHL season to punch their ticket to the Stanley Cup playoffs. Is this another season of disappointment for the Rangers and their fans, despite hype and expectations that are extraordinarily high? Or will this be the year they finally bring a Stanley Cup back to Manhattan? It's been 30 years for the Rangers, and, that clock is quickly going. And you think about the fact 1994 was 30 years ago, and for the Rangers, this is their 30-year anniversary since they last won a Stanley Cup, and what better year to go out and get a Stanley Cup than this season? And the Rangers have a lot of things going in their favor here. This is a Rangers team, we remember back in 2018, they announced with that letter that they were going to be rebuilding this team. They had a couple of down years. I remember as an Islander fan, reveling in that time. I went to a couple games at the Garden, and, since the Stadium Series game, every Islander-Ranger game I've been to, the Islanders have won those games, and in most of them, they've gotten shutouts as well, thanks to Semyon Varlamov's shutout streak at Madison Square Garden. But things have changed for the Rangers much better than where they were back in 2018. The Rangers have rebuilt this team. They've gotten a little bit of luck in the draft, let's be honest, right? Getting the first and second overall pick in some weird fashions that some people would question whether it was legitimate or not. But nonetheless, the Rangers have been able to get a decent amount out of those players, and they've also gotten a lot of help in other areas, making good trades, and really, the makeup of this team, a little bit of luck, a little bit of strategy, and just overall, just finding a way to get this team built. You look at some of the guys that, you could say a little bit of luck. Adam Fox, right? Kid from Carle Place on Long Island, grew up a Ranger fan. I think he was, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was drafted by Carolina, or the other way around, vice versa. He was either drafted by Carolina or Calgary, traded in the Noah Hannafin trade, going the other way, and then ultimately ends up going to the Rangers, and we know how the story went, right? He's one of those guys that he always planned on being a New York Ranger. He wouldn't sign anywhere else, and here we are, and he's now one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League. So a little bit of luck there. Also in the draft, they got the first and second overall pick in 2019 and 2020. In 2019, selecting second overall pick, Kaapo Kakko. He's been a pretty good player. A lot of Ranger fans, though, definitely are mad. Every Ranger game I go to at MSG, there's always fans saying, oh, that kid's a bust. We can't trade him for pucks and things like that. But the emergence of the other player, Alexis Lafreniere, who at a time actually looked like a bigger bust, even before, in the beginning of this season, you could argue Lafreniere was more of a bust than Kakko, and that narrative has completely changed. We'll talk about that in this video. Signing guys like Artemi Panarin, right? Obviously, that is a huge addition to this team. This year, bringing in Jonathan Quick, making some crucial trades, bringing in guys like Vincent Trocheck, Ryan Lindgren. The Rangers have made their fair share of good moves, and again, at the draft table as well, bringing in guys like Braden Schneider, Keandre Miller, Philip Hedl, Will Cully being one of the newer guys to that class. So there's a lot of things with the Rangers that they just have been able to get a combination of things to get them where they're at today. And looking at their season here, they are the first team to hit 100 points in the NHL, and with that 100-point mark, it just so happened to line up with them clinching a playoff spot. So the Rangers, like I said, top of the Metropolitan Division, led by Captain Jacob Trouba. We'll talk about that in a minute. 48 wins, 20 losses, 4 overtime, and shootout losses. This Rangers team, like I said, for most of the season, things have gone fairly well, but they have had their stretches of, not so great hockey. You look at this, a 6-2 loss to the Senators, 4-1 loss to the Kings, 7-3 loss to Toronto, 6-1 loss, and it seems like as things kind of turn around at the All-Star break, right around here, that's where the Rangers really started to put their true foot forward. And the Rangers are finally becoming that team we were hoping to see earlier this season. Now, despite all of the issues earlier in the season, the Rangers have still been one of the top teams in the Metropolitan Division. They've basically led the division most of the year. In the beginning, it was kind of like Philly was there for a little bit. And then once the Rangers overtook the Flyers, they never really looked back. And that was kind of it. It was just the Rangers show really up until this point. So, I think a huge thing we have to look at here is what is the difference between, say, this Rangers team and Rangers teams we've seen in the past? Because this is a really good team, but we've seen even better teams from the Rangers. You look at last year going into the playoffs, they made a trade bringing in Patrick Kane. That was a huge addition at the time. Bringing in Vladimir Tarasenko, same thing, huge deal at the time. They brought in Vincent Trocheck, again, big deal at the time. They ended up signing him to an extension, which really seems to be paying off right now. So you look at all the guys that have kind of been the revolving door of depth players and also the additions of good top players. And the Rangers are kind of emerging because of their lesser known players. And, despite a season where, for a large stretch, Ranger fans were really upset with players like Mika Zibanejad and Kaapo Kakko to this day still. Kaapo Kakko has struggled. Mika Zibanejad had a real tough spot where I think he had like 30 games with like 2 or 3 goals, like abysmal. But things have really turned around since the trade deadline, and he seems to be playing much better. Alexis Lafreniere is the story of the season for the Rangers, in my opinion. I think a lot of people could argue a couple of other guys on this team are in that category, but I think Alexis Lafreniere's emergence has been the difference for the Rangers between this season and last year. And despite not seeing a ton of success from Mika Zibanejad at least to the level we're used to, right? Like, he's still fourth on the team in points, right? Like, so to sit here and say like, oh, he's having a terrible season, yeah, he doesn't have 100 points like Panarin, but let's not sit here and say he's having a bad season either, right? Let's not be disingenuous here. But Lafreniere is the one I really want to look at because I think his emergence as a player this year is really what's allowing the rest of this team to do what they do best. And we talk about the new coach that came in last year, Peter Laviolette. I think the prime example of a player that grew in that situation is Alexis Lafreniere. And I actually saw a really good video. I wish I knew the guy's name, but he was talking about how the New York Rangers have kind of grown from where they used to be with I'm forgetting his name now. Their old head coach, Gerard Gallant, and kind of how they are this season, and the allowance of defensemen to move up in the play has really allowed the Rangers to be more of a threat offensively, and it's allowed players like Lafreniere and Panarin to really succeed. And even a guy like Vincent Trocheck, I mean, you guys saw when I was looking at the point leaders, the guy's got 72 points this season. Like, that is incredible. And you consider what the Rangers have down the middle, this is a really solid hockey team going into the playoffs. And I feel like I'm just blowing smoke up their ass, but I mean, you tell me. You look at this with a healthy lineup, right? With Filip Chytil in the mix, Mika Zibanejad, Vincent Trocheck, Alexander Wenberg, who I believe is a winger. He's not even in the lineup here. Alexander Wenberg, Jack Roslovic, Barclay Goodrow, and Filip Chytil. That is your center core for the Rangers, and a couple of those guys are injured. So yes, that is a part of this whole situation, right? Like I said, Chytil's out, Wenberg's out. Those are 2 centers. So yeah, I mean, Brodzinski is your third line center, and Goodrow there. Yeah, it's not your best, but again, with a fully healthy lineup, the Rangers look even better than that. And that's kind of where things stand for the Rangers. And what's interesting, too, is you guys saw the injuries. They're without Erik Gustafsson right now. He's day-to-day. He was, that injury. I actually went to that game against the Panthers. That was a rough hit. And then, of course, Jacob Trouba being out. And that's a big one for a whole other multitude of reasons. The leadership, his just presence on the ice. They're going to need him for the playoffs. But for right now, the Rangers have been able to get things done. And what's really interesting is earlier in the season I would have told you, well, the Rangers aren't going to have any success this year if Igor Shesterkin isn't playing out of his mind. And I was wrong. Igor Shesterkin, I mean, yeah, he's played a little bit better, but his numbers aren't spectacular like we're used to seeing from Shesterkin. It's more so the team around him is scoring more goals. That's really been the key difference between the Rangers this year and last, is they're scoring a lot more goals. And is that necessarily going to lead to playoff success? That's going to be determined when we get there. But with what we've seen from the Rangers this year, this is a really solid hockey team. But I will admit, and I always say this about the Rangers, and I know Ranger fans are going to say, oh, he's being an Islander homer, or he's a Ranger hater, whatever you want to say. The facts are the facts. This is a team that scores a shit ton of power play goals, and that is great. But come playoff time, in those clutch moments with 5 minutes left in the game, you're not going to get power plays in those situations. And most of the games I watch for the Rangers, they do get those power plays. If they're down 2 goals in a game and it's 5 minutes left in the game, they typically get power plays. And you could say I'm completely wrong, but you know what I'm talking about. It is a true thing. And listen, they score the goals, they do what they have to do, they come back in the games. This is an issue that the Toronto Maple Leafs suffered from as well. The Rangers are not the only team here that has this happen. But it's to deny that is absolutely ludicrous. And that is a part of the reason I think the Rangers do struggle in the playoffs is we look at such a good hockey team, but come playoff time, things get way more difficult. That's for every team, but specifically for the Rangers because of their 5-on-5 production is not that great. 5-on-5. They are still good, but this is a dangerous, different team if you give them power plays, yes, but you're not going to see that as much in the playoffs. And that is my one criticism for the Rangers going into the playoffs. That is going to be a different type of game for them, and it changes the way momentum works. It changes the way everything kind of goes, and if they don't get those power plays to kind of shift them back into the game, it seems like they have a hard time really getting going without those power plays, and you're not going to see that as much in the playoffs. And if the Rangers, I think they could be a pretty good team. I think they could get through a round or two, maybe to the conference finals with how they're playing. But if Igor Shesterkin is not on his best game, especially as you get deeper into the playoffs, you're probably going to be playing a top goalie or a really hot, strong goalie in the conference finals or the cup final. You need Shesterkin to be 1,000% if the Rangers want to do what they want to do. So the combination of seeing a little bit more from the depth, right? You want to see Kakko getting on the board more. Wenberg's playing well. Roslovic, those guys are already scoring for the Rangers. You want to see those guys do their thing. Mika Zibanejad putting on a show, doing his thing. Lafreniere and Panarin doing what they got to do, right? A healthy defense, Ryan Lindgren coming back healthy. Hopefully Gustafsson is back in the next couple of days. And Igor Shesterkin has got to be on his game. And if that's the case, the sky is the limit for the Rangers. I think there is just so much talent there, so much depth down the middle, which is critical. Like I said, in the playoffs especially, you need that center depth, and they do have that when healthy. And this is going to be a dangerous team. I'm really looking forward to seeing kind of how things go. I'm interested to see who they match up against if they end up taking the top of the division, which right now it looks like it. So they're going to be either playing a combination of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I know, that's a little bit scary. The Tampa Bay Lightning, the Detroit Red Wings, the Washington Capitals, or the Philadelphia Flyers. Any of those 4 teams, it sounds like, is the likely playoff spot or the likely playoff team that the Rangers will face in the first round. And I think that they're a pretty good matchup pretty much against all of those teams. You never know with Tampa. Tampa's a really good team. But everybody else, I think the Rangers should win that series, right? Against the Flyers, Capitals, or Red Wings. Those are literally the, I hate to put this way, kind of the bottom feeders of the league. So if the Rangers do end up winning the President's Trophy or they win the Eastern Conference with the most points, well, they get the luxury of playing whoever sneaks into that second wild card, and that way they avoid Tampa. I think that's a huge, huge reward for the Rangers if they are able to get that number 1 spot in the East. But we'll see how things play out. And let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you guys think this is the year for the New York Rangers, or do you think that some of the issues that I kind of mentioned here, is that going to be something that holds them back in the postseason? Let me know down below. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I will see you again next time. Peace out, guys.